Homo sapiens are weird creatures. As far as we know, we are the first species on this planet to become self-aware. And nature's big brain in a small-body DNA experiment has created an animal that has spread itself right across the globe. Since our ability to reproduce is all that evolution cares about, human beings expanding from a few thousand people at the southern tip of Africa to 8 billion today certainly has worked as far as our genes are concerned. Whether this all ends with us destroying ourselves and much of the planet remains to be seen. But from an evolutionary perspective, we have been wildly successful so far. But there are some odd side effects, bugs if you will, in our rise to consciousness. Evolution doesn't plan anything. It is all just random effects, and the combination of genetic mutations that has led ultimately to us has also resulted in a whole host of weird behaviors that we don't always talk about. One of those strange behaviors is how people telegraph their inner fears for all to see through their actions. These are things they desperately worry about themselves and really don't want you to know about them. But we can all see it from their behavior as clearly as if they said it out loud. Everyone does this to some degree, and mostly it doesn't matter, except to give haters ammunition. But some people like Donald Trump, Stephen Miller, Mike Johnson, Nancy Mace, and Kristi Noem are in unfortunate positions of power. And when these individuals act out their coping mechanisms against their inner fears, they have the ability to hurt many others in the process. Stephen Miller really thinks he's a wimp. Although all of Trump's cabinet are awful, Stephen Miller stands above the rest in sheer repulsiveness. Some of this stems from his obvious little man syndrome, which is kind of odd because he's average height, and his whole manner is one of a scared little boy trying to act tough so no one notices how terrified he really is inside. There is also the baldness, always a trigger for some men, and his slight frame, which makes him worry he really isn't someone to fear or respect, both of which he desperately wants from others. Combine this with his bizarre over-the-top rhetoric about immigrants and his straight-out-of-Nazi propaganda speeches, and you have to wonder, did his mom never hug him as a kid? It's either that or he was beaten up repeatedly by Latino kids in school. Maybe both? Elon Musk stealing his wife did some obvious damage too. For a weak guy like him, having his wife jump ship the moment she could is particularly painful. He got a lot crazier after that happened, and we are all paying the price. If I was his therapist, I would have him say into the mirror each morning, 1. I am important and deserve respect even though I'm bald, small, and my wife likes other men more than me. 2. People with a different skin color don't always mean me harm. 3. Even though I look like a penis, that doesn't mean I have to act like a dick. If he could actually take these 3 ideas into his warped brain, we wouldn't have to go through all of the horror with his roving ICE Gestapo gangs. Mike Johnson worries he is gay. For super religious guys, worrying they are gay is one of their biggest fears. Mike Johnson's bizarre relationship with his son, where they closely monitor each other's porn habits, screams louder than words that he just can't keep himself from viewing gay porn without someone keeping tabs on him. And then we have that whole strange TikTok incident, where someone claimed to have Mike Johnson's Grindr profile and messages, all of which seem to show him hooking up with random men at Republican events. Not that this is particularly rare, especially among the terribly repressed Republicans, but it is another in a long list of signs that Mike is very worried he really is a gay man. I don't know how many times we have to go through this with closeted gay men. They always cause untold damage before finally coming out, if they ever do. This is one of the places religion hurts society the most, which even organized religion seems to sometimes understand and try to fix. But we have a long way to go to eliminate this particular scourge on our culture. Mike, if you are listening, take these words to heart. 1. You are born gay or not. There is nothing you can do about it. 2. Religion is a fantasy created thousands of years ago to control people and generate wealth, so shake off your allegiance to your imaginary friend and just be yourself in the only life you are going to get. 3. The people in your life who are only nice to you because you are concealing your true identity are not, and have never been, your friends. Nancy Mace thinks she's really a man. The rabid anti-trans messaging from Nancy Mace tells us a lot about what she fears. For a woman who looks more mannish than I do, it is very strange to watch her bash trans people and run around the Capitol Hill restrooms lifting up women's skirts in a desperate search to find the mythical man in the women's bathroom boogeyman. Nancy obviously has suffered some pretty extreme bullying over how she looks, and I have some sympathy. But genetics is a funny thing. No matter how much she doesn't want to believe it, there is a whole range in how genes are expressed between different men and women. Whether or not she really is a trans man, or trans woman for that matter, is hard to say, but it is clearly something she worries a lot about. If she came to me for gender counseling, I would tell her, 1. Nancy, it doesn't matter if you are a man or a woman. All that matters is you are living your authentic life as who you really are. 2. The trans community knows how hard it is, and we will forgive you if you drop the act and just be yourself. 3. And Nancy, speaking as a friend, stop talking so much about other people's junk. It's just creepy, okay? Kristi Noem worries she really is fat and stupid. Watching Kristi speak is just painful. Her testimony in Congress that habeas corpus is the president's right to remove people from the country was laughably stupid. At least until I realized she is the Homeland Security Director. Yikes. Yet, despite her obvious limitations, apparently including being dumber than the puppy she failed to train, she just keeps on talking and putting herself out there. Add to that the bizarre cosplaying as a cowgirl, sheriff, and ICE agent makes you wonder just how old mentally she really is. I would guess about age 12, but maybe that's giving her too much credit. And I hate to bring it up, but is she bulimic or anorexic? She doesn't look good, and her bony arms, incredibly thin body, and needing to use the bathroom at all times is highly worrisome. When you include the extensive plastic surgery that has her face practically melting off, it speaks strongly to someone with severe body issues. As another who claims to love America, what we actually see from her is a deep hatred for anyone who doesn't look and act like what she thinks America is. When you understand how deeply she really hates herself, her behavior starts to make some tragic sense. Of course, Trump loves these kinds of deeply dysfunctional people, as it makes them easier to control and takes the spotlight off how mentally deranged he is. Anorexics are tough to help, though, even worse than bipolars. But she might want to tell herself over and over, 1. I can't fix my insides by making everyone else look like what I want to look like, and getting surgeons to keep carving me up is not going to end well. 2. I am not fat. 3. Even if I'm stupid, I still deserve love and respect. And Kristi, have a sandwich for Christ's sake. I think Jesus would want you to. And the king himself, Trump worries he really is stupid, poor, and ugly. Trump is such a cliché when it comes to telling us what he really thinks about himself. There isn't a speech or moment where the man doesn't continuously spill his purse full of insecurities out into the world. Everyone with any intelligence clearly sees this, how his fears control his every waking moment, with some notable mentions to include 1. The bizarre orange face painting and comb-over, as though we don't notice how bloated, bald, pasty, and revolting he really is. 2. Constantly telling us he is smart and knows all the best words, and the intelligent by association references he makes about relatives who have succeeded in complex fields. 3. Desperate hiding of his actual school test scores. 4. Meeting constant praise of his abilities and accomplishments from his subordinates. 5. Plastering his name over anything and everything. 6. Constantly scamming and scheming to increase his wealth at any cost to others, all the while secretly fearing he will never have enough. 7. And the just crazy transformation of the White House with enough gold paint to make a 14th century French monarch blush. As his dementia worsens, all of these behaviors have gotten more obvious, and in many ways, it is rather sad to see this man descend into his own personal hell. Just like all of the others, none of these coping mechanisms for what he fears about himself will really help in the long term, and the frankly embarrassing ass-kissing his cabinet does is just stomach-turning for the rest of us. He is a lot like the alcoholic who keeps on drinking himself into an early grave, never facing up to the reasons why he drinks in the first place. These are sick and broken people. Trump and all of the horrific sycophants in his circle are really very tragic figures. I know they are hurting all of us, actively destroying the country we love, and we have no idea how far down they will drag the whole country before it finally comes to an end. But one thing has always been true about people like this. Until they face up to what they really fear about themselves, they can never stop pushing their coping mechanism further and further. No matter what new horrible directive Stephen Miller gives to ICE to brutalize immigrants, that voice inside his head that is constantly whispering, "You are just a little scared bitch," will never go away. Kristi Noem may be able to quiet her voice for a while by dressing up as a cowgirl, but eventually she will start hearing, "You are fat and stupid," over and over once again. Although therapy and probably some strong medications are what most of these people need, it is hard to have much sympathy for them as they attack the country. Trump, as a genuine sociopath, has probably always been beyond the help of modern psychiatry, much to our detriment. But some of the others might be able to be helped, and we should want them to get that help. Letting people act out their worst impulses to cope with their fears is a very dangerous way to run a society. On this important No King's Day of protest, I encourage everyone to see these people for who they really are: damaged, scared, and deeply hurt souls who have been given power by a man whose personal story must be so tragic that it is hard to even grasp. I do have sympathy for all of them, but never mistake that for an unwavering commitment to keeping them from ever getting the power to hurt others again. As always, vote, protest, support each other, and I hope you were able to participate in today's historic protests.